wasn't able to make it, so I'm going to talk a little bit about her case. Her name is Brittany. She lived with her mom and dad. Her dad was abusive to her mom. In fact, he beat her mother so badly that her face was not recognizable. And she has a kind of a poster board of pictures the mom does of her beatings. If I didn't know her and I looked at those pictures, I wouldn't know it was the same person. That's how badly she was beaten. The father had quite a bit of money, so he definitely had an advantage in family court litigation. They got divorced because of the beating. Oh, he also tried to run over her with a car, and he was never criminally prosecuted for any of these things. But they got a divorce, and I don't remember what the custody arrangement was when they first got divorced, but in a short amount of time, Brittany disclosed that her father was sexually molesting her, and there was some physical evidence of it. So they went into family court, and the dad denied the abuse and said that the mom was afflicted with the infamous parental alienation syndrome. So he got custody of Brittany. And the mother continued to, every time Brittany would disclose again, the mom would try to tell the family court, here's what's going on, you've got to listen to me. And they viciously attacked her, claiming that this was more parental alienation syndrome. She was on supervised visitation, the mom was, and Brittany continued to disclose to supervised monitors. And the monitors made reports to the family court. So then they kicked that monitor off the case and get another one. And then when the next one reported Brittany's disclosures, they kicked that one off the case. And finally they said, nobody can talk about Brittany being sexually abused anymore. Nobody can do this. Child's attorney wouldn't allow any disclosures to be brought forward to the family court. So Brittany did have some contact with her mom at that time still, and her mother had remarried, had a little girl, and moved to Utah. Brittany came to visit in Utah and disclosed sexual abuse again. And mom went to the Utah authorities, and Utah gave mom a lifetime protective order for her and Brittany. Hold your applause. California sued Utah, forced Brittany back to California, and put her right back in the custody of her father. She lived for, I want to say, about 7 years in the custody of her father, and she had some supervised visits with her mom. Her mom had to fly to California to see her, but when her mother started publicizing the case, or maybe I shouldn't say her mom, when the media came and wanted this case and wanted to talk about it, then the mother was further viciously attacked in the family court with an allegation that she was emotionally abusing Brittany by allowing the case to be publicized. So eventually mom had no contact with Brittany at all. When Brittany was 16 years old, she ran away from her father because he continued to abuse her, physically also, and sexually. So she stayed underground for about a year until she found a law firm in Los Angeles that actually works to protect kids specifically. And I can't tell you, I've talked to her, but I can't remember the details. I don't know how she found this law firm, but it sounds very similar to Cindy's organization. So Brittany was then, there was a CPS case. It was taken to juvenile court in Los Angeles. And lo and behold, mom was charged by the juvenile court with failure to protect. And the juvenile court said that she should have been continually telling someone that Brittany was in danger. But in family court, every time she tried to do that, she was attacked more, and she lost more contact with the child. And nobody who was involved in the case that wanted to help Brittany was allowed to make any, complaints to the court. Well, she did beat the charge, Okay, it was pretty evident that she had done everything in her power to protect Brittany, far and beyond what anyone would ever even expect. So, that being said, Brittany was finally protected by the Los Angeles Juvenile Court, and she's now living with her mom. She's 17 and a half years old now. And so that's one of our success stories, and unfortunately there's so few and far between. And usually the only way that kids ever get protected when cases get so convoluted like this is if they run away. Because, the court seems to get entrenched in a position of ignoring anything that's brought to their attention that they already decided they didn't want to listen to. And unfortunately, it's like finding a needle in a haystack to be able to correct it once they've gone down that road. They don't want to say they made a mistake, and sometimes it boils down to something that simple. They just don't want to say they made a mistake, and they'd rather sacrifice the child than say we goofed and fix it. And I think these kids will speak to that issue. I just want to talk about one other case. I'm not personally familiar with this one. It's one I got in the email. It was about a young girl who was being sexually molested by her stepfather, and nobody would listen to her. She told her mom, and her mom was like, gee, I don't know, I'm having a hard time believing this, and I'm sorry, it wasn't her stepfather, it was her biological father, I'm sorry. And, law enforcement was like, oh, well, I don't know, I don't think so. Eventually, the kid kept trying to talk, and they criminally prosecuted this young girl for making false allegations of molest. I think she was like 14 years old at the time. When she was 16 years old, she was pregnant. And she finally told her mom that the father was the father of her baby. And the mom still didn't really want to believe this. And the girl said, go in the cabinet behind the TV, there's a video in there. And the mom went in, got the video, and put it in the VCR. And it was a video of the father molesting the girl. So she finally was protected only because that video existed. I'm sure after she had been criminally prosecuted and found guilty. They found her guilty of making false allegations. And the whole reason I'm telling you that story is to make a point of the denial that exists over this. The denial is so incredibly strong. People would almost rather believe anything than believe that, that a parent is molesting a child. And one of the problems is these parents can present in public as perfectly normal people. You can't tell by looking at them. You can't tell by talking to them. If you look deep enough, you're usually going to find some things that are questionable. But on the surface, you can't tell them from anyone else. They're very well hidden in society. So that being said, we're going to start with our panel of kids. And our first speaker is going to be Jeff.
Hello, my name is Jeff Ogerson, and I'm guessing probably quite a few of you recognize me. All of you would recognize me if the TV worked, but unfortunately it didn't. I was in the family court system for 9 years. It's 8 years, sorry. When I was 9 years old, my sisters had disclosed being molested by my dad. And they told my mom, and my mom did what any other good mom would do, and went to the court to report it, went to the sheriff's, went to all the right people she's supposed to go to. And you have to forgive me, I don't have any notes today, so I might be a little off. I went to a friend's house one day when I was living with my mom, before I was in my dad's custody. and they were divorced, or in the process of being divorced. And my friend's parents were one of them was a firefighter, the other one was a paramedic. And they had people over all the time that were other law enforcement and stuff like that. And one day I was at his house and a sheriff came. And I didn't think of anything of it because they had people over like that all the time. And before I knew it, my friend's parents came up to me and told me I had to go with the sheriff. I said, okay, I don't really understand what's happening, but I'll go with you. And so all I had was my backpack, my school books, and I went with the sheriff, and he took me to my dad's attorney's office. And from that point, I was placed in his custody, in my dad's custody. And we were appointed, me and my younger two sisters, were appointed a lawyer and a therapist, and we saw an evaluator when everything first happened. And my sisters had told the evaluator what happened, and they told the truth like they were supposed to, and I told the truth. But the evaluator wrote in his evaluation that my mom was suffering from parent alienation syndrome. And the lawyer that was appointed for my sister and I had evidence, physical evidence from UC Davis Medical Center that my sisters were molested by my dad. He had the reports from the sheriffs and the investigators, and he decided not to use any. And because of that, my sisters and myself were placed in my dad's custody and were not allowed to see my mom for 3 months. We weren't told anything really what happened. All that anyone told us was your mom is crazy, and she's going to be in a hospital for a while, and you're not going to get to see her. And then the therapist. We saw the therapist, and she was part of what I call the big three, which is my lawyer, the therapist, and the evaluator. She had some kind of vendetta against my mom because my whole family just ruined it, basically. And the same thing was told to my sisters and I from therapists, that our mom was crazy, and that if we ever wanted to see her again, we needed to write letters to the people who we told that our dad abused us. And write them letters saying, my mom told me to say that, and it never really happened. My dad's a great person. Well, we wrote the letters, and we were able to see my mom eventually for, I think it was an hour a month, under supervised visitation. We weren't supposed to talk about what was happening in our lives, like school or anything like that. It was totally artificial, everything. It was in a room probably 10 feet by 10 feet, with a few chairs in it, nothing else, dull fluorescent lighting. And eventually, we were able to see my mom more and more, only because she tried so hard, and she spent every cent she had earned through her entire life for my sisters. We got to the point where we were able to go see her we saw her every other weekend, and on the weeks we didn't see her, we saw her every Thursday night for 4 hours. That point had taken 6 or 7 years to get to. So my relationship with my mom was obliterated. By the time I got to actually spend time with her, I didn't really even didn't know her very well. It was real awkward, and the whole time, still this therapist, still this lawyer, I wrote them letter after letter after letter. Well, to the lawyer, begging him to make a motion for me to go live with my mom. Because my dad was just, to me, he was verbally abusive, and I was really scared of what he could do because I know what he did to my sisters. And I didn't want to live there, but my lawyer wouldn't make a motion for me to be in my mom's custody. And so one day, I was 17 at the time. I was in the middle of writing my lawyer yet another letter, I think it was the fourth one, within 2 months, asking for the same thing. Because that was all I had left. That's all I could do, was keep begging this man, please, you have the power, please put me in a safe place, put my sisters in a very safe place. He didn't do it. If we were in a safe place, he'd never be in court again. He wouldn't be making money off me.
Right. It's money. It's money.
He wouldn't be making money off my sisters.
Money.
So I ran away from my dad's house. I just put all my stuff in his car. And I drove to my mom's house, unloaded it, took his car back to his house. And when we went to visit her that night, I decided not to come back. But my sisters are younger than me and not so brave. There's a little more at risk for them, a lot more at risk for them. So they went back to my dad's house, and they have been there. And as of just a little while ago, a judge in our case decided it was best for my sisters not to see my mom at all. So now they're stuck in my dad's house. And I'm here, talking to you,
I'm trying to make a change. That's you.
asking you if you pray to anyone, I don't care what God it is, pray for the kids that are stuck in these homes.
Absolutely.
It's not right. This is not love. Sorry. I come here and I tell people this because I want to make a change. I honestly have no idea if my sisters will ever be able to escape my dad. He has so much power over his community. But I want to prevent this from happening to other kids. I want the rest of the kids to have a normal life. To when they're 12, worry about catching lizards under boards or something instead of how can they avoid going home. Anyway, that's my story. And that's why I'm here. And I just want to leave you with one quote, and that's, evil prevails when good men do nothing. It's not just men, of course. If you consider yourself a good man or a good woman, do something. Write a letter to a senator, something, anything. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to dedicate the rest of your life to this. Just do something. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to hear from Randy now.
Hello, my name is Randall Kravitz, and this is my story. It's not as extreme as Jeff's, which, I shouldn't actually have to be here to tell a story, but the court system actually worked the way it is, so. I can consider myself lucky, but I shouldn't have to. That's the way I think about it. Alright, I grew up as a kid, normal, other than little violent outbursts from my dad, verbal and a little abusive. And, I learned how to, avoid him and, duck around him and just try to stay out of his path. So after a while, it got alright, but my parents decided to get a divorce. And it started off, you go in, they do all the mediation, and, who wants this, who wants that, what are you going to do about the custody. And it originally started with my parents. We all agreed that I would live with my mother in our house, and then our dad would eventually, every once in a while come over, play a game of baseball or something, just to, slowly get everything adjusted. And that worked out all right, and I was, happy with that, because I didn't want to, divorce was already, like, what the heck is that? What's going on? I was very confused as a kid because I didn't really understand. And with this, slight change thing, I like that. That was good. But then the court got more pushy and involved, and it just kind of went downhill from there. And then this thing called visitation started coming up, and me and my brother were like, well, what's visitation? And then all of a sudden we were being forced to see our dad. I think it was every Wednesday for 4 hours, and every other weekend. And we're like, what happened? We were okay with this, when we wanted to see him kind of deal. And then all of a sudden we have to see him. And so my brother and I were upset about that. And it continued like that for a while. And then when we didn't want to see him, and, we're like, no, this weekend we want to do something else, we liked it before, it went to this PAS thing. And my mom started being called an alienator against my dad. And we got appointed a court-appointed attorney, my brother and I. And that's when it went downhill. That's when my game became a game of chess, that I wasn't in control of the pieces. I was there observing them. Through then the ex-parties, the famous ex-parties started, and custody started getting more increased towards my dad. We went from the every other weekend to from Friday to Sunday, basically every weekend and every Wednesday. And so we're like, what the heck's going on? I'm writing all these letters. I probably used a small force. Just all these letters to all these judges and all these attorneys going, what the heck is going on? I'm saying this, and then that is happening. And why is this not coming together the way it should be? And I was told, oh, you're a kid. You don't know what's going on. Let the adults do your best interest for you. I'm like, well, what the heck's my best interest? I know what my best interest is. Do you know what my best interest is? I don't think you do, because it's not happening. So, once again, keep going back to the letters, and just writing and writing and writing, and it just, nothing happened. Every letter I wrote, something bad came from it. Like, Mom would be pulled back into court. I think over 50 times eventually it turned out, and around 150,000 in lawyer bills at the end. Yep, money. Every time they pull you in, that's like $2,000 right in their pocket. So it kept going on with court, and then our dad moved away to Indiana, and that complicated things. Because then he wanted to see custody of us going out there to visit him during the summer. And our first summer out there, we were only supposed to be there for, I think, 4 weeks, so basically a month. And we're like, we want to go back, this is stupid, why are we being forced to go somewhere we don't want to go? He's the one that moved. Why do we have to uproot our lives that we've been living, since for like 7 years? Why should we have to change when he's the one that decided to move away? So we went on our first summer vacation with our dad, and it was all right. I mean, it's kind of sucked, to be honest, really, because he was working. My brother and I, we just stayed in the house, out in Indiana. There's no one around. We just sat there basically all day and played video games. It wasn't really that entertaining. And after a week before our 4 weeks, our attorney said, would you guys like to stay more? We said no. We talked to him for 2 hours saying, you know what, this is boring. He doesn't even pay attention to us. Why does he even want us here? He's not even doing anything. And we're like, no, we want to go back. And he's like, well, let me talk to your dad. And then my dad picks up the phone, talks to him for about 3 hours, and I can hear him, laughing, getting along, like, oh, they're having a great time, we're doing all sorts of good stuff. And that's totally false. And then the next thing I know, vacation with my dad gets extended another 4 weeks. So basically, I'm stuck in Indiana with nothing to do, which is my brother. And my dad is ignoring us, and boom, we come back and then go back to California and school starts. I thought I got so sour of a deal on that. I'm just so upset because, the court system, they don't listen to the kids at all, one bit. We're just little pawns, and they just push us around, and they get their money, and they're happy, and they go on. So it happened out that winter that our dad was supposed to have the 2 weeks for Christmas, but I was like, we can't go back for Christmas because our grandma from Utah's coming. And we called them and let them know ahead of time before they made plan arrangements or, something that would absolutely make us go back there. And she was really sick at the time, and we didn't know if she was going to make it past that winter. She did, so, God bless that. But I was talking to my attorney going, what the heck, can we just postpone this? Can we go out for Easter or some other visitation time? Because I really want to see my grandma. And he called me basically a liar, saying my mom was making all this up, saying that when I can actually think of something that's truthful, that I actually thought of, to call him and tell him that. And not something my mom was telling me. And he was, I think, said frankly getting tired of it. So basically I was stuck in a cage, just getting pushed around. So when it came around for winter visitation, my brother and I would get on the plane. We said, you guys don't know us, and you can't tell us what to do. And so we didn't get on the plane, and then, once again, the famous ex parte with more legal action against my mother. And so everything was all right until summer came around. We were getting ready for 4 weeks of vacation with our dad out in Indiana, and we get a letter in the mail going ex parte again. And we're like, what the heck is this for? It's, a week before our vacation. Every time I saw that letter in the mail, I knew something bad was going to happen. And I didn't even have to know. I just knew bad stuff comes from white letters with the court address on it. So that ex parte, we show up in court, and we sit down in the hallway because we were never allowed in the courtroom because we were kids. And we had an attorney, so they said, this isn't a place for you. So we sat outside, and our mom went in. Next thing I know, 5 minutes later, bailiff's taking my brother and I, and dragging us away from our mother. We're kicking and screaming, crying, what the heck's going on? Why are you taking us? And they said, you're going to go live with your dad now. So they try to put us on a plane. My brother and I resist once again, and then my dad comes out, and then he takes us back to Indiana. I lived in Indiana until that winter. My mom, this whole time I wasn't talking to my mom in between the summer and about December because we weren't allowed to. And at the same time, I had to go see a court-appointed therapist to get me readjusted to Indiana life. And also that was supposedly our only way to talk to our mom was through the psychologist. And that psychologist I don't even think she was a psychologist. She was really weird. Really weird. But through our whole sessions, every time, as soon as I got in the room, can I talk to my mom? When can I talk to my mom? Because, it's not natural not to be able to talk to my parents. So, she's like, I'm working on it, don't worry about it, just, ask me next week or whenever. And she says, well, how's your life in Indiana? How's it going? You got any friends yet? And she'd always be drilling me about all this stuff, about, how are you adjusting, all that stuff. And do you want to run away? Do you want, because I've tried everything in court. We have 6 volumes of binders of court papers in our case. And what's really amazing is they magically disappeared from the Sacramento County Courthouse. They're no longer there. We go to get them, and they say, sorry, we don't have 6 volumes of binders. So it's ridiculous. So, going back to where I was, my mom said, if you want to run away, I can help you. My brother and I were like, okay, that's awesome. We're going to finally go home. And I think it was somewhere in December, I don't remember the exact date, but I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, run out of my house, I see a taxi down the road, I'm running as fast as I can down this road to catch up to this taxi, and the thing turned around and my mom was inside. got my brother, and we went in this taxi to Louisville, Kentucky. We took a bus from Louisville to Indianapolis, and we took a plane from Indianapolis to Reno, where we hid out for a couple of days. I think enough for you guys that I ran away, that I want to go home, that I know what I'm doing, and getting this PA last time. And you know, I'm tired of having to go back to Indiana. It's this other life that wasn't really mine that I wanted. And I was like, you know what, I'm running away again. So I told my grandparents that I was staying with that I'm going to go over to my friend's house, return a video game that I borrowed him the night before I was supposed to go back. And they finally decided, hey, maybe this kid actually knows what he's thinking about. So with my court-appointed attorney, the only reason why it ended at 2 years, to be honest, is my court-appointed attorney, he got upgraded to not a judge, but a commissioner, or something below a judge. So he got knocked off as my attorney, which is pretty sad how one person that doesn't listen to anybody can become a judge. So with that, I was like, what the heck? So I felt bad for all the people that he's going to be judging over, but I was like, sweet, this is my chance. We got 2 new court-appointed attorneys this time. My brother got one and I got one. My attorney, she's like, yeah, it's legit. You can go back to your mom. And I finally packed up my mom, and it felt so weird because basically I've been gone for 4 years totally from California for my life. And I went and visited all my friends, and they're all grown up. And they're like 16 now, 17. And I'm just like, you know, where have I been? It's like a time capsule that I was stuck in, and I'm magically back to where I was, but everything's changed. So that was a little odd to get used to and everything. I finally had life again, but it was changed. So like I said, I have to get used to all the change. And I don't want any other kid to have to go through that. Because being uprooted just all of a sudden, because I mean seriously, bailiff drug us off. We didn't have anything except the clothes on our back at all. Our suits, that's all we were wearing was our suits from court. And that was it. It was just like, they didn't care. They just, threw me in this trash bag and threw me out on the curb, and there I was, laying there. And I don't want any kid to have to go through, having an abusive parent and then having to live with them and being ignored and all that change, because it's not healthy. I mean, I'm pretty resilient, which if I wasn't, I don't think I would have made it through this, with my brain still on my shoulders. But I'm just looking forward to graduate, 6 more weeks in high school. I'm happy. Probably go to Sac City first, and then Sac State, get my double major in math and science, become a teacher, and maybe get involved in this whole politics thing eventually and try to change things. So, thank you for listening.
Okay, next we have Matt and Lynn, and their brother and sister.
This is so illogical as to be unbelievable. I grew up in the justice system, and I learned quickly that it doesn't provide true justice. As far back as I can remember, my father abused me and my sister. When I was 5 and my family was still together, a doctor said that I had been abused, and my father's reaction to this was to go to Illinois and into the family court and file for divorce and custody. And then the judge awarded him custody due to parental alienation syndrome, which isn't true, I don't think. No. Basically, when someone represents proof of abuse, the judge just says that it's alienation syndrome and ignores it. The Child Protective Services are a big problem. When my sister and I tell them about the abuse, they just say that it's PAS. the mother was coaching us. And when we refused to talk to them, they say that it never happened. And after several reports from police and doctors and school personnel and lots of other people, and after an obvious bias, my case got moved from Kane County to Will County in Illinois. Will County substantiated or legally founded that my father abused and neglected my sister and I. He was placed on no contact, and my mother was advised to bring us home to California to let our healing begin. And then one day, Mr. LeBaron, he's my principal, he called me out of class and said, "There's a few policemen in the office waiting for you." And when I got to the office, the policeman just put me in the back of a police car, and I had no idea where they were bringing us. And then they brought me to my sister's school, and it happened that my dad showed up in California, and he was trying to get us back to Illinois and away from our mother again. And at that point, I basically felt sick. I felt like I was going to throw up, really. And we refused to go back to him. And for some miracle, they didn't make us like they did every other time. And then my father went back to Illinois and filed for abduction, saying that Mom kidnapped us, which is a big joke. And then one day when we were coming home from school, we got pulled over and the police came and arrested my mom. And they brought her to jail, and that was the worst time of my life, really. And I felt that all was lost, and the only way to get out of it was to kill myself. So I was suicidal then. And also the judge ordered us to go back to Dad in Illinois, which I wouldn't survive if I did that. And then there wasn't a single time then that my grandma and my uncles and grandparents and everyone weren't either crying or on the phone to the attorneys or child protective services or really anyone who was involved at the case. And then we got it. And then it went to the appellate court because my mom's attorney, Molly, filed an appeal. And the appellate court said that under no circumstances were we allowed to be transported back to Illinois with our father. And that's kind of where we're at now. So it hasn't ended yet, but it needs to soon. And that's about it.
I'm Lynch Jalaya, and I'm Max's sister. Ever since I was 3, my parents have been divorced, and I've been part of the system. When I was 3, we were forced to go to Illinois and had to stay there away from my family in California. Soon we were placed in the custody of my father, and we hardly ever got to see my mom. We'd only see her 8 days out of a whole month. Finally, me and my brother had enough with this, and we talked to like every child services, police. We would reach out to anyone we could, but no one would either listen or do anything about it. So one day, me and my brother talked to one person, and they finally substantiated the abuse, and we were placed under no contact with our father. then we moved to California to start our healing process. But soon my father started trying to get us back into his custody. So he came to my school one day and he had a court order saying we had to go back to him. Me and my brother were at my school and we thought we were going to go back to him. And the police officer lied to us and said that our mother was already in Illinois waiting for us when she was really just at our house. So we believed it because we didn't know what else to do. And then a child services person showed up and we had to tell her about the abuse and everything. And under some miracle, we weren't returned to Illinois with our father. And so then we got to stay with our mother, but our father wouldn't give up, so he brought this into juvenile court in California. And we were staying with our mother until, as my brother told you, she got arrested. And so my dad came back and he got an order saying that we had to go back to him. So we were pretty much hiding out for I don't know how long it was, but until we got an order that said that we could bail my mom out of jail. Once she was out, we were able to start fighting in court, and they let out an order saying that we could stay. So we had to go back to court every month. They would just keep having us go back. And then about 2 months ago, we had an order saying that our case was going to be transferred to family court and that juvenile court would do nothing to protect us or keep our case. And we didn't really know what to do. We were always talking to our attorneys and whoever we could. And then finally, after we've been trying a lot, we were, the appellate court got our case and said that they'll take it and that we are to stay with our mother. But we never really know because any minute, any phone call or email or anything we get could decide the rest of our lives. So it's a scary feeling. That's my story.
I'm going to ask the kids a few questions. We only have a few minutes. I'm going to ask them a few questions that they can kind of spontaneously answer. Can any of you talk about the lasting effect of not knowing from day to day what your life is holding? That feeling of how that feels? That uncertainty? Anybody who wants to answer that?
Well, at school, every time the phone rings or someone walks in the room with a note, I'm just terrified that it's going to be that there's the police and I have to go back to my dad. And also, one of the things my dad did is he wouldn't let me sleep or eat, so even to this day I have lots of trouble sleeping every night.
Well, it's very frightening and like how my brother said in school, whenever the phone rings or anything like that, it feels like you're getting a heart attack. It's a horrible feeling.
One of the major lasting effects that I've noticed, mainly thanks to the court system completely miserably failing me, is it takes a long time. It's real hard.
It's the court. Yeah.
It takes a long time, and it's very hard for me to trust anybody. I trust my mom, trust my girlfriend, trust Randall. I trust people, but it definitely has hurt that aspect of my life.
Yeah, like Jeff said, the court system, in my eyes, just the family court, has no bearing of justice to me. It's just more of a bickering fight, and whoever has the most money in the end wins, I guess. Game of Monopoly, if someone controls the board, they've won. But yeah, it takes a little while to trust, especially, I don't trust people in power as much as I used to, so I mean, because, they could be saying something totally different than what they're, actually doing. So yeah, the trust issue picked. And while I was going through the whole court thing, that everyday thing of just dreading one of those letters in the mail, that was not good. I hated the mailbox because I knew bad things came from the mailbox. It just, that every day.
Can any of you speak to specific things that your court-appointed, the people who were appointed to represent you did that made it obvious to you that they weren't representing you, they were representing the other parents? I know Jeff has said in the past that after court hearings, the therapist and the attorney would go out to lunch with his dad. Can you talk about that, Jeff?
Yeah, the attorney that was appointed for my sisters and I, and the therapist, both after court would go to Denny's and order the cheapest thing on the menu and talk about how glad they are that they won just an hour ago, that they won the game, and they never really said anything to me or my sisters. They just talked to each other about how awesome they are for taking advantage of these kids, and well, they didn't say it literally, but that's definitely how they felt, I'm sure.
And were you there?
Yeah, I was there.
And your dad?
I was present. I was there. My father was there, and my lawyer was there. My therapist was there, and my sisters were there. And
You all had lunch together after.
yeah, they all decided to meet for lunch and hang out, talk about their victory.
You ever thought of filing a lawsuit?
What's that? What county? Amador County.
Mac, you had a bad experience where you had to crawl out a window. Can you talk about that?
Well, my dad came home from Wendy's one day, and he couldn't find the remote anywhere, so he thought that I took it and hid it. And basically, he took the burger right out of my hands and threw it away. He wouldn't let me eat. And then I went to my room and locked myself in because I was scared, and he didn't like not being able to see me or whatever. He didn't like me being locked in my own room, being separated from him. Yeah, he didn't like not having power. So then I found a Lego, I think it was, and I ended up cutting through the screen because it wouldn't just push out like they're supposed to. And I crawled out the screen, and I went over to the neighbor's little condo or whatever it was, and I pushed the button and said that, call the police because my dad threatened to kill me. Because as I was in the room, he was banging on the door, and he said, come out. And I said, what if I don't? And he said, then I'll kill you. And then the neighbor called the police and let me in his house. And then the police came over and they just took pictures, and what I didn't like is that they didn't really do anything. They just left me there. And that's what happened.
Jeff, you've talked about having a hard time sleeping. Can you talk about that and, what the reasons were for that and what it was about your dad that scared you so much.
Yeah, ever since I was living with my dad, I'd always had a really hard time falling asleep. Mainly because being the big brother, I wanted to be awake all night to make sure he didn't go in my sister's room to molest them. And I got used to not sleeping. And I mean, today, sometimes I sleep in, maybe till 8, if I'm lucky. I still have a really hard time sleeping, going to bed, because it's in my nature now to stay awake and try to protect, even though I'm not even there. And yeah, and one of the reasons I was so afraid of my dad is because I had no idea what he would do to me if I really pushed the limits. I never did, because he was a very aggressive person, always slamming doors, throwing things, and the kind of person that would do what he did to my sisters. I have no idea what else he would do. It's a sick thing. And so yeah, I was very afraid of him. That's also part of the reason I couldn't sleep, because I didn't know if there was going to come a day where he would come into my room. So yeah, that's that.
Okay, our time is up, but we have something special. Mac and Lynn don't know about this. It's a surprise.
All right. First of all, I'm pretty proud of you guys for being here and talking. That's you actually did. If you would come up here for just a second. On behalf of the Courageous Kids Network and the California Protective Parents Association, we want to award you guys these medals for speaking out. I'd say, these are awarded to Matt and Lynn, their courage in talking about their experience. It takes people like you guys to change things. And it takes, people have to hear from the kids to know that it's really happening. And kind of on a personal note, I just want to let you know that no matter what, every day I'm here, I will be behind you, 100%, okay?
Okay, let's have a big round of applause for these kids.